There's nothing more frustrating than sitting down to compose some new music and your mind just going completely blank. There's so many things that you can start with, like the chords, the melody, instrumentation, or the style of the music. It just seems too overwhelming to know what to start with. If you find yourself in this situation a lot when you go to compose music, I'm going to show you some tips on how to overcome this and to generate new musical ideas quickly. So before I even start writing music, there's three main things that I do just to get some ideas going and to help me focus my writing so that I'm able to really write exactly what I want. I set parameters for myself, like a chord progression, a melody, and instrumentation. So these just help me to focus my ideas and narrow them down so that I'm able to think of something that will work within these parameters. You might have heard before that restrictions encourage creativity, and so by creating these restrictions, you're able to be more focused and you'll be able to generate new musical ideas much quicker. Parameters are a really great way to know what you want to go for when you start writing a piece of music. Some things that I think of when I start writing a piece of music is, what instruments do I want to use? What mood or emotions do I want to evoke in the music? And other specific parameters such as the time signature, the key signature, the tempo, or even the structure of the music. This is a really good way to start as well. By setting down the structure of a piece, you're able to create your musical ideas that will fit into this structure, and it'll give you a good idea of like where the piece is going and what you need to write next. So here I'm just jotting down some parameters for the idea that I want to write today. So first of all, I've got the time signature as 4/4, and then the key signature is G major. And then I'm thinking about what tempo I should use, and so I've written moderately fast and just 110 BPM. And then I've just written all the instruments that I could use, and if I want to use this in the future, I could use more instruments, and then just kind of general terms to describe the mood and atmosphere of the piece that I want to go for. And then I'm just also jotting down a structure that could work. So once I write down some parameters for the piece, I usually move on to creating a chord progression. So I usually start with the chord progression because it really gives me a good guide for the melody when I start writing that. You can start writing with the melody first, but I usually prefer to start writing with the chord progression. And chord progressions are a really way just to get your ideas flowing. The chord progression will constrain you more when you go to write the melody, so you'll be able to think of something a bit easier. And now you can keep the chords as simple as you like to leave a lot of room for that melody. So sometimes when I want to write a piece that's more melodic and has like a memorable melody, I usually like to start with a simple chord progressions, which leaves a lot of room for the melody. But if I want to write something that's more ambient or just kind of is in the background of some media, then I like to make the chord progression a bit more interesting and add a lot of extension. And then so with the melody won't be the main focus of the music in that case. So it's really up to you whether you create a simple chord progression or a complex chord progression. Just have a think about what you want to get out of the piece of music that you're writing. So now I'm going to use the parameters that I wrote down just before to create a chord progression, and I'll show you how I do that. So first of all, we're in G major, so we're going to come up with some chords in G major. I think we'll just come up with 4 chords, and that'll be enough for our little idea. So I think we'll start G major, and then we might go to D major, and then A minor, and then maybe D major again. So something as simple as that will get us where we want. So now we can record that in. So I'm going to change the BPM to what we wrote down, which was 110. And now I will record the chord progression in. And that's it. So I'm also going to write this chord progression down on my paper. You don't really have to use a DAW to write in your chords. It's up to you. You can just use your instrument to write in, to figure out some chords and then write them down. The last thing I usually do is write the melody. The melody is usually the most important part of a piece, or it can be just something that kind of floats in the background and keeps the music moving. A good way to just get better with writing melodies is just to do this a lot more and try and do it every day. Just create a new little idea every day, and you'll find yourself finding little techniques and shortcuts to creating a nice little melody that then you can use in the future to expand on. So usually I start with finding the chord tones of the music, of the chord progression that I wrote before, and putting them in where the chord changes. So then I can, that gives me a good guide as to where the melody moves. Now you can either have the chord tones really close within an octave or something, or we can have them over 3 octaves. So it gives you, it's a bit more of a melody that jumps around, or you can have a melody that flows really nicely, just depending on the music that you want to write. Firstly, I start with a little motif, so it might be something short, maybe 1 bar long or a few notes long. Making use of that motif, I pretty much duplicate it, and then I vary it or extend it or use different techniques just to use the same material but make it a little bit different so it repeats. And so when I'm writing this melody, I usually try not to be too much of a perfectionist, because I know that when I actually use this material to write a piece of music, then I will most likely change stuff. It's really just putting some notes down, making a nice melody, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to sound nice and achieve the style you're going for. The main goal for this process is to just focus on writing down a melody so you can get an idea out, and then in the future you can use it or you can change it how you like. Most of the time I aim to write 2 to 8 bars of a melody. Sometimes I can't really think that well and I only manage to get 1 or 2 bars of a melody done, or sometimes I'm feeling really motivated and I get a whole 8 bars or even more of the melody. Just write as much as you can. Don't force yourself to write more if it's really a bit too difficult, because then you can always use this and another time and you'll be able to expand upon it in a different way that you might not have thought of at the moment. So now I'm going to use the chord progression and write a melody to it, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, now I've got my chord progression done. Now I'm going to add a melody, and because I just made a simple chord progression, I want the melody to really stand out. And so that's really only 4 notes there, okay? And then I can add a little variation on the end there. So let's record that in now. Put it up here. If you want to add a beat, if you're thinking, you can think of a beat, you can add that in as well. But really these are the main components that I need to start writing a piece. So now I can pretty much just save this somewhere, and this will be ready for me to use when I want to write a piece with these parameters. And I'm not very motivated to start writing. I always find starting to write a new piece of music one of the most difficult parts when in composition, because if you don't know what the piece will look like at the end, then it's difficult to know really where you want to start. So hopefully this has helped you out, and by using these steps you'll be able to write new musical ideas quicker, and you'll be able to get into the flow of composition a lot quicker. Let me know how you go with coming up with a new idea for a composition. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.